Hey guys, tonight I want to share with you a story that's very close to my heart. It's a story about a woman who spent her life teaching the past and now finds herself alone with nothing but memories and old books. A woman who once shaped young minds with history lessons, now facing a future without a classroom and no clear purpose. It's a story about history, but not just the kind you read in books. This one is about the history of one life and the lessons we learn even after our time has passed. My apartment is tucked away in a quiet corner of the city. It's small, cozy, and filled to the brim with history. Bookshelves crammed with old, worn-out books, detailed world maps, and small artifacts from ancient civilizations tell the stories of a world long gone. This is my sanctuary, my personal library, where I've spent countless hours teaching my students, or at least, in the quiet of my own company, trying to keep alive the passion I once had for sharing history. Right now, Snowy, my cat, is curled up on my lap, purring gently. As I flip through an old history book, I find myself mumbling to her, as if lecturing to a class of eager students. "You know, Snowy," I say softly, stroking her fur, "history isn't just about the past. It's about understanding the present, about seeing the patterns in the world, about knowing why we are where we are today." In these quiet moments, history is all I have. It's my companion, my solace. But beneath it all, there's an emptiness I can't ignore. Robert, my dear husband, has been gone for some time now, and the absence of his presence still lingers in this space. Life feels a little quieter, a little more distant. I sometimes wonder, what am I really doing now? What is my purpose without my classroom, without the students I once inspired? History, once a job, is now my only constant. History on the shelves and present loneliness. My apartment, a quiet refuge in a corner of the city, is more than just a place where I live. It's a living, breathing archive of my life. It's where I've spent my years, surrounded by books, maps, and artifacts that remind me of the civilizations I once taught. The musty scent of old paper fills the room as I flip through a familiar history book. The pages are worn, soft to the touch from years of reading and teaching. Sitting here now, with Snowy curled up on my lap, I feel a strange combination of comfort and sadness. As I read aloud to my cat, I feel a connection to my past life, to the days when I stood before a class of eager minds sharing the lessons of the past. But now, the classroom is empty. The students are gone. The world outside has moved on, and I am left with only the echoes of my former life. There are days when I feel like the world has forgotten me. The house is so quiet now, so still. Robert's absence is a constant presence, a shadow that follows me from room to room. I think of the times we spent together, of the laughter and warmth that filled these walls. And now, it's just me and the cat. And the stories in these books that seem to have no one to tell them to. I look out the window, watching the world move on, and I wonder what my place in it is now. I'm no longer the teacher I once was, no longer the person whose voice was heard in the classroom. I am just Eleanor, a woman surrounded by memories, trying to find new meaning in the pages of history. But sometimes, I wonder if I'm still relevant. What purpose does history serve if there's no one left to teach it to? A call from the past. The phone rings, breaking the silence in my apartment. I jump a little, startled by the sudden noise. It's been so long since I've received a call. Most of my friends are retired, and we mostly just check in with each other every so often. I pick up the receiver, already knowing who it is. Cynthia, a former colleague from the high school where I taught for so many years. Her voice, usually calm and composed, is filled with urgency. Eleanor, Cynthia says, her voice trembling slightly. I need your help. It's about Liam. Liam. I remember him well. He was one of those students, the kind who never seemed interested in anything. He would always roll his eyes when I started talking about history, like he thought it was a waste of time. I thought I'd seen the last of him when he graduated. But now, Cynthia's voice makes me pause. I'm silent for a moment, trying to absorb what Cynthia is saying. I remember Liam as a rebellious, indifferent student, but now he's clearly struggling with something far deeper, and Cynthia thinks I can help him? The thought makes me uneasy. I don't know if I'm still capable of reaching someone like Liam, but something in Cynthia's voice tells me that I have no choice but to try. I'll meet him, I say, my voice steady. Despite the doubt I feel creeping in, confronting a past self. When I arrived at the library, I felt the weight of my own hesitation pressing down on me. I hadn't been in a setting like this for a while, meeting a student outside the classroom with no formal lesson plan or syllabus to follow. The library was quiet, almost too quiet, and it made the task ahead seem even more daunting. I spotted Liam right away, sitting at the farthest corner of the room. His posture was slouched, his face obscured by the hood of his jacket. It was hard to believe that this was the same boy I had taught years ago, the same student who had been so full of potential but so determined to hide it. Now he looked defeated, lost. He barely looked up when I approached him, not even acknowledging my presence. Liam, I said softly, sitting down across from him. It's been a long time. He didn't respond. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. I could see the anger in him, the apathy. He wasn't interested in talking, and I wasn't sure how to begin. But I knew I had to try. What's going on? I asked, my voice gentle but firm. Liam didn't look at me. He kept his gaze fixed on the table in front of him. Finally, he muttered under his breath. History is pointless. It's all just stuff that happened a long time ago. Doesn't matter now. His words hit me like a physical blow. The subject I had devoted my life to, the lessons I had spent years teaching, were dismissed as irrelevant, meaningless. The sting of his words made me question everything I had believed in. Was it all in vain? Had I wasted my life teaching something no one cared about? But in that moment, as I looked at Liam, something inside me shifted. I realized that his anger wasn't just about rejecting history, it was about rejecting everything. It was about feeling lost, feeling abandoned by the world. And in that feeling, I saw a reflection of myself. I know you don't care about history, I said quietly, but there's more to it than just dates and events. History teaches us how to live, how to face adversity. It's not just about what was lost, it's about how we handle those losses. Liam didn't respond, but I could see something change in his eyes. For the first time, he was listening. The silence stretched on, but this time it didn't feel as oppressive. Liam was still staring at the table, but I could feel his attention shifting. I could tell that something in my words had struck a chord, even if he wasn't ready to admit it yet. I decided to take a different approach. I wasn't going to lecture him about the importance of history. I wasn't going to tell him he was wrong for feeling the way he did. Instead, I would share a story of resilience, of human strength in the face of unimaginable hardship. A story that wasn't about me teaching him, but about him finding something inside himself. Liam, I said, my voice steady but soft, do you remember Ernest Shackleton's Imperial Transantarctic expedition? He looked at me, his brow furrowed in confusion. Yeah, I think I've heard of it. I smiled, relieved that at least he knew the name. In 1914, Shackleton and his crew set out to cross Antarctica, but their journey didn't go as planned. Their ship, the Endurance, got trapped in ice. For 10 months they were stuck in the frozen wasteland of the Antarctic, unable to move. Eventually, the ship was destroyed by the ice, and they had no choice but to abandon it. Liam's eyes seemed to soften just a little. I pressed on, sensing that he was beginning to engage. Can you imagine that? Losing everything, your ship, your goal, everything you've worked for, and yet they didn't give up. Shackleton didn't give up on them. Despite being stranded in the most inhospitable place on Earth, he led his men to safety. They were lost, but they found a way to survive. They were stuck, but they didn't give up. I paused, letting the words hang in the air between us. History isn't just about what was lost, Liam. It's about how we deal with what we lose. It's about resilience, about never giving up, no matter how impossible things may seem. I watched as Liam's expression shifted, his face still guarded, but now with something else in his eyes, something resembling curiosity, or maybe hope. It's like Shackleton and his crew, I continued. They had every reason to give up, but they kept going. Your life isn't any different. You might be in your own winter right now, but what matters is how you navigate it. You can choose to let it crush you, or you can choose to fight through it, to rise above it. Liam was silent for a long moment, and I wondered if I had said too much. But then, slowly, he looked up at me, his eyes not full of defiance, but of something else, something I hadn't seen in him before. It was a glimmer of realization, and I knew in that moment that I had made a connection, not just with Liam, but with the part of him that had been lost, the part that needed to be found. A new beginning and a fresh hope.
Days passed, and Liam slowly began to change. Not drastically, but in small, meaningful ways. At first, he didn't fully embrace the lessons I tried to share with him, but he started to listen. The walls he'd built around himself, the indifference and the apathy, slowly began to crumble. It wasn't just about history anymore, it was about connection, about feeling like he wasn't alone in this world. We continued meeting once a week, not just for history lessons, but for conversations about life. We talked about everything, the struggles he faced, the pressure he felt from his family, the fears he had for his future. Liam was no longer the disinterested, rebellious teenager who had no care for anything. He started to open up, and with every conversation, I saw a new layer of him that had been hidden for so long. One afternoon, we sat in my apartment, the sunlight filtering through the curtains, casting long shadows on the floor. We were both reading the history book I had given him. I watched as Liam flipped through the pages, pausing to mark certain sections with a pencil. He wasn't just reading, he was thinking, reflecting. "Miss Eleanor," he said, his voice softer than before. "I think I get it now. History is not just stuff from the past. It's about learning from people who went through hell and kept going. It's about understanding that you don't just have to give up when things go wrong." I smiled. A real smile. It had been so long since I'd seen that kind of change, a true shift in someone's mindset. Exactly, Liam. It's about resilience, about never letting go of hope, no matter how bleak things may seem. His face softened, and for the first time I saw something that resembled peace in his eyes. It was a far cry from the angry, defiant teenager I had first met. It was like a fog had lifted, and Liam was beginning to see a clearer path forward. "I'm still trying to figure things out, but I think I've learned something important," Liam continued, shifting his gaze to meet mine. "I can't just keep running away from everything. I have to face it. I have to deal with it, just like the people in history did." "You've got it, Liam," I said, my heart swelling with pride. "And just like them, you'll get through it. Life won't be easy, but you've got the strength to face whatever comes your way." Liam nodded slowly, absorbing the weight of my words. He wasn't perfect, and I didn't expect him to be. But for the first time, I saw someone who was willing to try. Someone who wasn't just giving up, but was ready to fight for his future. It was the most rewarding moment of my life. knowing I had somehow made a difference.
A moment of realization.
It wasn't just Liam who was changing. I, too, had found something in this journey, something I didn't even know I was missing. For years, I had thought my purpose had ended when I retired from teaching. I believed that the impact I had once made in the classroom was all I had to offer. But now, sitting with Liam, I realized something. My purpose hadn't ended. It had simply evolved. The joy I found in watching Liam begin to change mirrored the joy I used to feel when I saw a student finally grasp a concept. It wasn't about the subject matter. It was about helping someone see the potential within themselves. It was about helping them find their way when they thought they were lost. And I realized that I still had that power, even if I wasn't in a classroom anymore. In some ways, teaching wasn't just about teaching history. It was about teaching resilience, about showing others that even in the darkest times, there's always a way forward. The future. As weeks turned into months, Liam's transformation continued. He started performing better in his classes, but more importantly, he found a renewed sense of purpose. He wasn't just a student anymore. He was a young man who had begun to understand the importance of resilience. It wasn't an easy journey, but it was his journey, and that's what mattered. Liam's grades improved, but it was his attitude that really changed. He started participating in class, engaging with his teachers, and taking an interest in subjects he had once dismissed as boring. He began to see history not as something irrelevant, as a tool, something that could help him understand the world and, more importantly, himself. And me? I had found a renewed sense of purpose. I realized that I could still make a difference even without a classroom. I still had the power to teach, to guide, and to inspire. History was no longer just a subject I taught. It was a bridge that connected me to others like Liam, who needed someone to show them that they weren't alone. As for Snowy, my faithful companion, she still curled up on my lap every day, always by my side. The quiet, constant presence of my cat reminded me that even in the silence, there's still a lot of life to be found. And just like that, my own life, much like the history I cherish, continued to unfold, full of lessons, growth, and quiet moments of renewal.